Hello and welcome to the Tech in the Hood podcast. I'm your host, Ahmed Omar. Tech in the Hood is a storytelling podcast that explores the past, present, and future of Chicago's cultural identity through conversations about community and technology. Each week, I reconnect with the friends and mentors who have shared this journey and spotlight new voices and innovators building the future of the Tech in the Hood. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today I have my friend Sara Agate from MuniTask. She's the founder of MuniTask, and I am so pleased to have her here on the show. And I probably butchered your last name.
Nah, you said it right, Flex. Come on, we've known each other for a year. I think you know it's Sara Agate.
Okay, thank goodness.
Thank you.
Thank goodness, yeah, because I was sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Okay, well, first question, how did we meet? How do we know each other?
Go ahead, take it from here. I'll chime in. It's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year. Yeah, so anniversary. Yeah, anniversary's coming
so
up.
this is a cool friend anniversary podcast, special edition.
There you go. It was through the Israeli consulate.
Exactly.
And
there was a
private event.
Yes.
At the Chicago
Cultural Museum.
Chicago Cultural Center.
Yeah.
And it's interesting for me because ironically, that's where StoryCorps was housed, and that's where I recorded over 100 Mala stories downstairs.
Wow.
In that same, building. So.
And what years were you doing that from?
2015 to 2019.
Before COVID.
Yeah, before COVID, yeah. So spend a lot of time in the Chicago Cultural Center. But it was really cool. We met through another Sara.
Yes, from the AJC.
Exactly. I always love to give people props, right? Sarah Van Loon from AJC.
Sarah with an H.
That's
I'm
right.
without an H.
Yeah, that is right. So Sarah said, you got to meet this young lady. She's in tech. That's it. That's all you need to know, Flex.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then after the event, we talked. What did we do? We went to eat.
Yeah, we're like, let's talk about this startup stuff you're working on.
You want to share a plate of food? Yeah. I love my foodie friends.
There you go. Yeah. You're a real Chicagoan. Are you originally from here?
So I was born at McNeil, which is now Loyola. So technically,
Berwyn.
So, and I grew up in Cicero. Okay. So I want to be, safe when I say this. I wasn't born in Chicago because I know how these Chicago people get.
Yeah.
I don't want someone to come after me after this podcast.
My audience is very friendly.
Depends on what side you're from. But someone who's living, 100 miles out.
Okay.
You can't say you're from Chicago. Exactly. Okay. We just have to, some things cannot always be in the gray. So I feel like I spent a lot of my time, my adult life, in Chicago, and really feel its sense of community, throughout the area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. But any Chicago stories you want to tell us?
Chicago stories that I want to tell you. Are we off the record or,
We're on the record. People, you said you were born in Berwyn, but you've spent time, over here.
Yeah,
and
so I went to...
And you're a foodie, so...
Yeah. I went to UIC.
There you go.
So I spent a lot, like 8-9 years around the area because I went to UIC for my bachelor's and my master's, and then I went away for a bit in DC, came back to go to law school at the Chicago Kent College of Law, and spent a lot of time there. What stories you want to hear? I'm like,
So the interesting thing is right now you are a tech entrepreneur.
Yes.
A tech startup. So why did you start tech company here in Chicago? Why Chicago?
Yeah, why Chicago? And I hope that the Chicago community continues to grow to support founders, and it's particular women founders. It's a different market here compared to the coast. Really, my launching into becoming a founder happened throughout COVID. So I've always been fascinated in my life with technology and innovation. And so, as a policy practitioner, as someone who's, worked in and around healthcare and government, I would just have fun keeping up with those things and, being in the industry and learning what's going on. How can we connect the dots? How can we make things more efficient and effective? And I finished up my time in Springfield as counsel and was like, what am I doing next? I had a personal event happen in my life that really got me thinking and reflecting. And that's when I said, now is the time with COVID. And after what happened, I was like, I'm going to try to launch this company. And that was, about 14 months ago. I always thought I would become an entrepreneur. I didn't think it would be so early in my career and my life. But, here we are. Faith has me on the journey. And so I'm really excited to now be connecting what I feel is something I've always had an interest in. It's always been involved in my career. But now to be a businesswoman emerging in the space.
And then name MuniTask.
Oh, that's so funny. The stories behind startup names or any business
Finally,
name.
I got the stories. Let's go.
The Muni, I was sitting around with a couple friends, and Muni just comes from municipality.
Okay.
And a bunch of government geeks just hanging out. Ho, ho, ho. That's so cool. Let's put Muni.
Well, not everyone knows that word.
Yeah.
So
usually we say local government,
city hall,
village, town. Yeah.
Town. Yeah.
Yeah. And then task came from just looking at kind of what else was happening within competitors. And so we did
rabbit task.
Yeah, one of those. And we just said, you know what, MuniTask it is to capture like the essence of government and try to be a cool startup.
And you found a domain.
Yeah, that's also a key factor in and where you go to get a startup name. Is the domain open? And I didn't want anything like .ly, .io.
.io.
It's like two steps too cool for my spaces.
Are you a .com? Or
We're a .com.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So idea, name.
Yeah. So we officially, we incorporated last April, really got out in the scene just with visibility. So really putting myself out there, doing a lot of pitch competitions, building my team, doing a lot of customer discovery. We've talked to over 250 organizations and government stakeholders across the board to really make sure that
local or just
nationwide.
Nationwide.
Yeah, nationwide. The goal of MuniTask is to be the intermediary, bringing the gig economy to government. So we like to think of ourselves now, and where we're going is we are much like the partnership between IKEA and what they did with TaskRabbit, and how we are basically going to help people not do their annoying, furniture assembly, but for government, because they have such a large job demand across all levels, across all skills, across the entire nation. And the workforce for the public sector, unfortunately, hasn't recovered since the recession in 2008. And that's devastating as someone who's worked in and around government.
Yeah.
Government is the largest employer collectively in the world. So when we don't have enough workforce, things are going to start to go wrong. So this is a decade-long problem, and we think that the gig economy and government need to be connected so that we can, bring a new job demand line to all the freelancers and gig workers, and then also open up and make sure that government has the workers that they need.
So what's the reason for the low numbers? I mean, are young people just not excited about going and working in government?
I think that's part of it.
Okay.
There's different generational traits that we need to pay attention to. I also think that the way the future of work has changed, the average person is switching jobs, 2 to 5 times within a 10-year period.
Yeah.
And what does that mean for government and how it hires and has perks? Well, pensions. Usually you have to vest a certain number of years to collect a pension. Well, pensions, in my opinion, are going irrelevant with younger generations because of the natural changes that are happening with future of work in our modern society. So you have a pension system that's not really talking to generations that need to be in the public sector workforce. You have old, outdated staffing agency models. You have the lower pay. I mean, let's just call it, compared to the private sector, the pay is lower. And then last, you have old tech. and processes that are safeguards in a lot of ways, understandably so for government, but that turn out to be a barrier to people getting interested and staying engaged with a career in government.
So that's the problem. What's the solution?
The solution, we launched our beta in January, and we learned...
what's a beta? For someone who has no idea.
Yeah, well, after it's just a very low product that you put out there. It's just it's just getting something out in the.
Does the beta come after your MVP?
Yeah.
What was your MVP?
A NoCode.
Okay.
Platform. I taught myself. I went through a fellowship, learned some NoCode because as a non-technical founder, I don't have a background in engineering or software development. I was like, I should learn this so that I can be ready. And that's what I did. And so that was iteration 1. Then I had some engineers come help me out and we worked together and we got the beta. And now what we realized after the launch is that we actually think that there's going to be more power in partnerships. So a lot of our competitors, I really don't think they're competitors to us in a sense, are siloed. And so, there's not any connection, to try to bring government jobs to these. I mean, there's thousands of marketplaces, hundreds of millions of people that are doing this work. So we are now going to be basically kind of like in the back end. We want to be like a plug and play option to figure out, what users are more likely to engage with what jobs. How do we get in front of them? So we're a job board right now because it's a database of all these jobs in government, but we're going to grow so that we can integrate with other gig economy platforms.
So let's go back a little bit. You mentioned NoCode. What did you build that on?
The actual NoCode platform that we used to build the first MVP was, it's called Glide Apps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it just lets you, based on what you're looking to do, whip like a couple of pages or a landing page or...
Yeah, a little cooler than that. I mean, we had like a whole user interface and experience that replicated some marketplaces out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a start.
Hey,
there's 1,000 no-code tools out there.
But that's the point, right? Like you got to start, somewhere and then get, feedback and then go from there.
Yeah. So we're in our second.
That was NoCode,
product.
and then the beta. The beta was the one that you just mentioned recently.
Yeah. Okay. January launch.
Okay. So then what's next?
We're working on our integrations and partnership development with these gig economy marketplaces. So.
That's massive.
Yeah, it is. It's really, the power is going to be in the partnerships. I think that to spend a lot of time and energy trying to bring users to my platform, which is, it takes a lot of time, and why do it? I think we don't have the time, the urgency of this problem, given the federal fundings that have to be basically obligated and expended by 2026. It's critical. We're in a time where the federal government gave unprecedented, we're looking at like a $6.4 billion market on workforce development, and we need to make these connections now and quickly.
6.4 billion? Okay. And what organizations are getting that money? So
the federal government allocates it to the states. The state allocate it to the local and municipal and tribal governments, and then they can allocate it from there. And those can be, I don't want to get too technical, but a bunch of different governmental and non-governmental agencies.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All in the next few years, right? So this is the urgency of it that, that I think positioning as a startup allows you to really enter and do thoughtful and quick work. And that's what we're trying to do.
No, absolutely. It's good to know all that information and those, numbers that are out there.
Yeah.
So strategic partnerships, is that something that's really important?
Right now, yeah, that's my focus, is I want to really find some other gig economy marketplaces to partner with and say, let's bring the gig economy to government. We have the job demand, it's there. Let's explore what this new era is going to look like. I have no doubt in my lifetime that this will happen. Yeah. But as with anything, it takes, with government, things are different, right? Sure. So it's just having to understand those processes.
Slower.
It is. It's slower, and understandably so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understand because in my prior work with Mala, I had an NGO, so I spent a lot of time in DC, and I also spent a time at the UN, but when I would come back to Chicago, not everyone understands how government operates or the UN operates, and then something would happen and be like, aren't you doing something with the UN? Why don't you talk to someone or something like this? It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if we could make this stuff work as fast as they'll give you a parking ticket, we'd be in a different position.
Seriously. Yeah, exactly. They're quick with those parking tickets.
I'm like, what the?
But so when I would go to, I was doing stuff at the UN. Yeah. And COVID hit. We had our UN Women, conferences and so on. We had the option of using the proprietary video service, for the webinars and the panels and so on from the UN. And I said, absolutely not. I'm going to use Zoom because this is old stuff. I want to control, the quality for my audience. And I also want to know who is, in the audience, So they're like, no, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, guys, your stuff is old. I mean, and if anyone from the UN is listening, like, not upgrade.
Yeah.
I'm no longer part of the UN, so I can give honest feedback, because you have to build platforms that appeal to the next, generation, right? I mean, government tends to be behind disruption. A lot of other businesses and industries, it's changing. And technology is just, especially after COVID. Yeah, COVID just put us into the future. And with FlexTech, people are like, "Oh, FlexTech AI. Tell us about the artificial intelligence you're working on." I'm like, "None." Like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's applied intelligence.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. Well, we still got to use your brain, and then we're going to integrate and build you a tech stack, right? And let you know what tools actually work, for your company, for your business, right? Because technology is supposed to enable, right? And not, you just build technology for no reason. I mean, one of my mentors, said, "Hey, don't wait." To build, something. Nobody cares about your technology. Nobody cares. Is it saving someone money or time? Right. So when you're building any solution, literally this was his exact words. He said, "Go ghetto." Yeah. So
wow. So that's.
I mean, I can give you an example.
It's one of your guideposts.
I'm just saying, with the Tech in the Hood, site. Yeah. I didn't wait for it to be perfect.
Yeah, we can't.
Started off with a landing page, image, I had the MailChimp connected on the back, and that's it. Yeah. I can send messages to people. Okay, waitlist. What's next? Yeah. Okay, next thing is we put together the media, player, and we build the back end. But it's still, one page. So I'm going to build that, slowly. Yeah. But the important thing is I've on all these distro, channels now, right? On Apple, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, and so on. So SEO is working. That's the important thing. Like, just get started and keep going.
It's definitely a long-term game when you're working with government. We have to really de-risk the innovation to them and understand that rightfully there are rules and regs and policies in place for a balance, right? For a lot of reasons. However, that can stunt, being able to rapidly adopt technology and other things. And so this bringing the gig economy to government, or bringing Zoom to government, something that simple takes time. But it's important. It's really imperative. And that's why I took a step outside, because I figured that being within government, with my law and policy background, I wasn't going to be able to effectuate change in a way that would make sense. And so I took a step outside of it to build what we're building, which is, trying to have the right product market fit so that when we're ready to integrate with our different government customers, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's de-risked. It makes sense to a constituent. It makes sense to an elected or appointed official. It makes sense to an HR person. It makes sense to a front desk person. Everybody in this stakeholder ecosystem matters. And that's what I love. So it's fun, but I know that,
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but,
So who do you pitch, right? I mean, so for me, when I'm pitching my services, I go talk to CTOs and CFOs, right? People are like, oh, this is
we need flex tech,
we need flex tech, right?
Pretty direct line.
So who do you go to in government?
In government, a lot of our conversations have been with because this is a workforce gap, so naturally people think workforce and they think of HR, human resources individuals. So we have been talking with them to understand the needs and the problems. We've also been talking to administrators or executive directors, depending on if we're talking to, a municipal government versus a park district. Yeah. There's a lot of nuances, but executive directors, municipal administrators, sometimes, people on the boards as well. So we've been doing a lot of customer discovery across all of them. And ultimately you need to know as well who the procurement officer is and who the CFO is. Those are important people because they're the ones who are going to be on the technical, making sure that things are done and we get it through. But gov tech, and that's a word that I think holds a lot of stigma oftentimes, especially in the startup ecosystem. Gov tech. So, I'm mindful of when I use that word gov tech because we're B2G and B2B, but it's about understanding the ecosystem and the stakeholders because I could go to somebody and I know the stakeholders in Chicago or in Cook County doesn't mean it's going to be the same in LA County. Mm-hmm. It could be different.
Yeah, it's different.
Or, even in a small town.
Culture's different, history's different, community makeup is different, so there's a lot of things.
Yeah, and there's over 33,000 local governments in the U.S., so naturally they're going to be a little bit different.
It's a lot of government.
It's a lot, right? Yeah. Largest employer in the world, and we can't take that lightly. So we have a workforce gap. We need to fix it.
We hear B2C, we hear B2B. You don't hear B2G.
What's up, G?
So are you, talking to students as well? Like who would be the folks that would pick up these gig economy jobs?
Well, how we have it launched right now is, getting the seasonal workforce up there. So that's through a lot of park departments or park and recs. It depends on the state and if they're legally allowed to form park districts or just have a park department under their local government. But, for a lot of seasonal work, it tends to be either, the basically 15 to 25-year-old group and then usually retirees engaging in, the seasonal workforce. So those jobs are like lifeguards, camp counselors, park maintenance, pool maintenance, on and on and on. So the way we have it now as a point of entry was with Parks and Rec, because we believe that those are the jobs that most easily can translate, have the path of least resistance to becoming a more gig economy focus.
So there's no AI that's going to take those jobs, no robots. I'm just saying.
I think we have
on our next segment on Word on the Street.
I think that the government has to even just tackle handling and drafting privacy rules and regulations before they even get into AI. So it's way beyond.
So hey, that's the move. Look at these government jobs. The AI is not coming for it.
Not yet, at least. Yet. There's some cool tech out there, like policy writing technology, basically, that's it can write certain policies for you. But still, even if a legislature were to adopt or pilot out a policy writing technology, there's for sure going to be a policy practitioner or counsel who's going to review it and read it. It's just natural.
So this is what I say about AI. It's not going to take our jobs, it's going to eliminate certain jobs, but it's also going to create new jobs. That's what technology does. But for me, AI tools are like having a great intern, right? So I've been using Slack for a long time, since 2015. I built my non-for-profit through it when Slack was in beta. Yeah. Slack bot.
Yeah, we have. There's a lot of support tools out there.
Slackbot was legit. I mean, I can check the cheapest flight, check different things, and then when you API, different tools that
different
you're
integrations
using. So I just tell Slackbot. It's a great assistant.
I think there's a lot of tools for support.
Yeah.
And it's not something I would say that we should be afraid of, but we should be curious about and ultimately have a sense of humor about. I mean,
100%.
We have to laugh at all this stuff as well because
how many years we've been saying that technology is going to take over people's jobs.
I just love the movies that come out that really show that. I'm excited, to see like robot friends and, like I love when you go to the sushi. There's a few sushi restaurants in the area where you can go and they have like the robots that bring you. I love that,
It's entertaining.
It's fun, yeah. So.
Speaking of movies, I did watch Glass Onion.
Oh, it's funny, right? Yeah, I think I watched that on a flight or something. And I was, why did we talk about that? Why did I bring up Glass?
I think we were talking about protecting your idea.
Oh, that's on the napkin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ideas on napkins.
I think if, I feel like maybe that would be a good problem for me if someone thought that my idea on the napkin, like they wanted to take it, right? But I don't
But not everyone thinks like that, right? So are you the entrepreneur that it's like, I will send you an NDA in order for us to have this meeting about my work? I have
used NDAs in the business so far, but it's not necessary in every situation.
Yeah.
But, especially when you're working with certain people, it is. I mean, you need to protect. I tell that to a lot of different founders and people I meet. It's important to protect yourself and your business. I mean, this, in a lot of ways, is blood, sweat, and tears for many of us. I mean, I've been bootstrapped the entire time. And I know plenty of founders that are like that. So I just feel like that's my contribution in this space is to still use my lawyer mind, is to still say, hey, these are things you should care about. Although, I'm not fully practicing right now because there's not enough hours in the day, but
it's all right.
Once upon a time.
So what does 2023 look like for you?
2023, I'm really excited. We're going into an election year, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity to, we're building right now partnerships and curiosity channels. When it comes to government, we're being thought leaders and action leaders. And so what I mean by that is, we recently had an article that, had MuniTask in it. It's the National Rec and Park Association. It's the #1 association for Parks and Rec in the nation. And, it's talking about gig economy and government, and that's great. And so we have a number of other spaces that we're in to move the needle because we know it's going to take time. But that, we have a lineup. So there'll be something coming out from us, every month for the rest of the year about thought leadership and really engaging the ecosystem and different people, because there's a lot of people like me who are in government. There's a huge workforce of millennials. The boomers are heading out, and we are assuming, we meaning they who are still on the ground, assuming these leadership roles. And so it's not crazy when they're like, oh yeah, the gig economy could work for us. In fact, they need support. They want support. So when I'm talking to like my peer group, it's understandable. And so that's why I'm positive about this will happen in our lifetime, because the leaderships are going to evolve over time, and we're going to continue to build these curiosity channels. And I like to call it that because it's about opening people's minds. It's about thinking differently. And that's sometimes hard to do when you're just like on that public servant grind. You can get jaded, right? You establish your 10-year pension in certain, age groups, and you're just like riding it out. And in other cases, you're not. And there's nothing wrong with either way, but if you can inspire curiosity in people, that's a form where you can have a dialogue.
Yeah, and storytelling, right?
Yeah, and your diplomatic background, my background, it really is about opening up dialogue.
For sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of dialogue, are there podcasts that you enjoy apart from this one?
I love, I switch between podcast and my library. So like I like to use Hoopla and Libby and Canopy through my local public library. I am really into, I love like the Bloomberg government, the Bloomberg finance, like these 8-10 minute bits that you get.
Yeah.
And then there's this other one, let's just open it up because let's see what I listened to recently. First 100, I think.
First 100 what?
It's my first 100K. It's a finance podcast.
Oh, like the first 100K that I fundraised?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do I see here?
Interesting.
Yeah, and then Nutrition Diva. I have been listening to this for over a decade.
Yeah.
I love Nutrition Diva.
I'm gonna tag them all.
Yes, it's great. And Nutrition Diva is so great. It's made me a healthier person all these years. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that.
I love it.
Keep
going. This is helping my SEO.
Your SEO. All right, we'll keep going. There's another one called Your Brain. I didn't swear there.
Okay.
I have the NCSL, which is the National Council of State Legislatures, which is a great resource. We get a lot of our research from there. And then your money briefing, some legal ones, that are, because, I'm still a lawyer inside and I really like to keep up. Deep down.
And take the lawyer.
Yeah, that's why I have my notes here. We signed a disclaimer and an NDA.
Yeah. The prep was interesting too.
Marketplace Tech is a great one. And then Let's Talk Parks. So those are just like my main ones that
There's some good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I rotate with,
For
when I'm running or at the beach or trying to pretend that I don't want someone to talk to me because I'm in thought.
So are you a person that binges podcasts, or how do you listen to podcasts?
I read about 2 to 3 books a month, and then in between that, like when I'm like, I just need a break from reading.
Audible or like actual
both.
books?
So I usually do, like, I split it in thirds. I have an ebook, an audiobook, and a paperback.
Okay.
And I switch between them. So I love reading.
What days?
I guess since I'm not practicing law every day, reading contracts.
I'm collecting my survey right now. What days of the week do you listen to podcasts?
Probably the weekend.
Okay.
Like on I'll just like have it on and.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm more Monday.
A Monday podcast person.
Motivation Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I call it a manic Monday.
I love Mondays.
Yeah. Or Meatless Monday. That was a public health campaign way back that I was really into.
I remember that. So another question. I mean, as a woman of color, any pressing, challenges that you face?
Yeah, I think, I definitely can fall into that category. It depends on the spaces I'm in. I come from a Mexican and Sicilian background. And so I think it just depends on who's looking at you. Most spaces that I have to say I'm in are predominantly where I'm going to look different. I'm not going to look like, the average people that are often in the spaces that I'm in. So I think that, do you want to hear my take on, like, as it relates to startup, the law?
As it relates to startups,
and
right?
tech.
Is it hard for you to find mentors that look like you? Like what challenges that you face on a personal level?
I think it is challenging to find, I have mentors. I've had a decent long career so far. I mean, one that I'm proud of. And so it's not for lack of mentors, it's like for people that are going to sponsor you, that are, money. Comes down to money or getting you a seat at the table. And most of the times I have to ask, or have to go out and be active about it. So I think that it's about using your voice. So the challenge is using your voice and using it enough and being persistent and getting across to the right people. But again, if these spaces that you don't know exist or are not able to access because you can't get a ticket or because you can't afford $250 for a membership or this and that, right? Because bootstrapping means there is a budget, you have limits, and you're trying to run a company. And so I think that that's the biggest challenge is just getting in the spaces, asking for what you need, because quite honestly, you're not always going to be invited.
Yeah.
And I don't always think that that's intentional. I think that it's a systemic problem that we have to actively be putting in our forefront. I'm going to an event. Am I bringing a woman with me? Am I giving tickets away to these types of people because their voices matter, because they need to be here? So I carry that with me as a leader.
Sure.
But I think that, it's not always, not everybody shares that value where it's carried. So you got to figure out ways to get in.
No, absolutely. So again, going back to the way we met, right?
Yeah.
The Israeli consulate. Did you win an award through that?
Oh yeah. So that was my first competition, literally 2 weeks after I had MuniTasks became a thing, and super. I mean, I think we're scrappy now, but back then I was like, that was some ish right there. Like, whoa. Just, I had met the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and then Tech Rise,
we got to give them a shout out.
1871.
What's the owner's name?
Of who's
Hispanic.
The CEO of Jaime?
Jaime, yeah.
Yeah.
I know Jaime.
Yeah. What's up? Latinx Tech Week is actually next week. They're one of the sponsors. That's happening next week. So every evening there's going to be like different events.
I'll make a note to
attend. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff. I'll send you
It's been a while since I've seen Jaime.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah. So they have, so they did this with the consulate, this social impact competition. Someone said, Sara, you should apply.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't
you were
even
only
have
doing that for 2 weeks.
Well, with the true like honing in on the problem, like we didn't have a product, this was pre-product. This was really idea on napkin, you're talking March of last year.
Domain?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was on legit. It was on some no-code platform. I mean, I didn't.
Don't matter. You got your domain. You're good.
I think also the measure of a business though, Flex, and why I'm trying to be clear about it is that business has to make money. It has to be profitable, and I'm not there yet. As we're sitting here, we're pre-revenue, but and so last March we were just idea on napkin, and someone said, Sara, you should apply because it is social impact driven.
How many companies though in Silicon Valley get funded and don't make money for years?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just call a spade a spade.
You're right. You're right. Oh, don't start talking poker now. Because I got my lessons tonight.
Are we going to talk about poker?
Yeah, I have my lessons tonight at 7.
Tell me about that.
Okay, I will right after we finish the point about the competition.
Sure.
So that was my first competition ever. It was great. I mean, to have that experience, for sure, nervous. And what I really appreciate about certain pitch competitions, and I know people are like, there can only be one winner. Not everybody can be a winner. You get A's or you fail. But I really appreciate in the startup ecosystem, as being a founder, there's a lot of time and energy that goes into preparing for a pitch competition, and that's taken away from other things. So I have appreciated those competitions that give everybody something. It might not be the big pop, but like, you gave me $2,000. You gave me $1,000. Like, thank you for at least being mindful that it took me time, energy, and potentially travel, lodging, et cetera, to get here.
Sure.
So yeah. And I got to meet Osvaldo from Connect Care Hero and Sign Speak and some really other amazing companies that are my peers that I look up to and that are ahead of me and really doing great social impact in the world. So.
And who gave the funding for that?
That was all of the partners. I remember ABC 7 was there too. Yeah. And it was Tech Rise, the Illinois Hispanic Chamber, the General Consulate of Israel to the Midwest. Mm-hmm. In 1871, it was those 4 partners that made it happen.
So was that a good confidence boost after that?
I wouldn't say confidence boost, but it was an awakening. It was like, all right, you just put it out there. It's out there.
It's out there in the
universe. It's real. And so I've it was just like, you're going. Yeah. You got to walk the walk now.
Okay.
So and we're walking it months later.
I love those, though, the pitch competitions and hackathons.
I love hackathons.
Yeah.
I know. I want to participate in the MIT has a Grand Health Hackathon that's coming up.
Oh. So you got to travel to Boston to do it?
You would, although the first one I participated in was virtual because it was during COVID.
Okay.
One of the coolest hackathons I ever participated in because I thought it was so multidisciplinary. There were practitioners, there were technologists, there were policy, there were lawyers.
Those are the best.
That's
hackathons.
how we solve problems.
Yeah.
And if you look at my team is intergenerational. We are diverse. We have different skill sets.
Sure.
And we're all centered on the values of, we stay curious, we work hard, and we know that we're out to do a public good. And like with those guiding principles, I mean, I just love it. So yeah, changing it up over here.
All right. CEO. Is that the correct title? CEO?
I mean, yeah, and the legal documentation. That's what I mean. Founder is what most people say. And then, every once in a while I still, I'm like Sara.
All right.
Sara.
Sara from the block.
Yeah, I haven't thought of my poker name yet though.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So now we can talk about the poker.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I did the poker lessons. It was through like, oh my gosh. And, Get Cities and Tech Rise. And then the sponsoring law firm was, I'm going to blank on it right now. It's some couple of people's last names. And I just really I walked out of there like, wow, this is a confidence booster. I had never really, people are going to think right now gambling, but poker is one of the few games that actually can require skill. And ultimately what Poker Power, the organization that is striving to train 1 million women to be at the poker table, it's about, basically, understanding risk, asserting yourself, building confidence. And, if winning money and having fun is a part of the ride, then why not? So because I asked, they said, yeah, come and take lessons on us. And that's what I've been doing, and I've loved it. And I see how it's influencing my life in different ways in just like the last 4 weeks. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I like it.
So have you been to any poker tournaments yet?
No. I don't have time for poker tournaments, but I can see myself in the future doing some charity tournaments. And I think that the skills can be, have personal and professional benefits. And now I joke with my cousins. I'm like, so I'm going to come to the poker games, and they're like, ha. And, but yeah, a lot of times who's at the table in poker even, and where does business get done? Let's be real about this, Flex. Business is done.
I don't golf.
Not during the
don't
Zoom
look
meetings.
At me. I don't golf.
Okay, but not golf. What about pickleball? I like pickleball. What else? There's a lot of stuff. Being in the bar with your friends. Like, business is done, and if women are not in these spaces, and it's Women's History Month.
It's true.
It's not done when it's the real meeting, like the board meeting. The deposit, like whatever it is, business is not done there. It's done in all of these other spaces. It's
Absolutely.
a code switch.
Absolutely.
Again, that's what I say about spaces. If you're not behind the scenes, if you're not in those spaces, you do not have access. You are not, there's a lot missing. So I think golf, poker, we can name a lot of them. Tennis.
I sponsored Midwest Fashion Week, and
I love that.
For years, but for me, it was a different, networking opportunity for people to come in, network around fashion, around, style, and through fashion. I mean, there's photography, there's all sorts
models.
of artists, models. Yeah.
People love models, right?
Hey, look. I have nothing against models.
I don't either.
Some of my best friends.
Models are professionals. They should be treated as such.
Absolutely. And some of the sweetest human beings, and for me, there was a social impact component as well, because we would get a lot of kids, that were picked on, for their looks and so on. The parents will bring them to us and then, teach them different skills, and but again,
bullying is horrible.
Bullying is the worst.
The cyberbullying, I mean, it's just.
And now it's gone, with social media and all of that. So when these kids come to us, let's teach you something cool and fun, But most models want to be on the runway, and then I got to break people's hearts and tell them that's not where the money is.
Yeah. There's a lot of.
It's like Flow from Progressive, what product are you selling? It's a business. So all of a sudden we're like, oh, okay.
You are selling a product.
Yeah. Take acting classes. Why do I need to take acting classes if I'm going to be, a model? And I'm like, you still got to sell a product.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And if you get into acting and you get, on a show or something, a lot easier to get modeling, gigs, So it was cool, because that was something interesting and different for me, because I don't come from a fashion, background. I enjoy fashion, but right now it's pandemic fashion week, Lululemon.
Okay.
That's what I got on.
Yeah,
but,
that's funny. So you're still in the pandemic fashion wear. The athleisure, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's just chilling now. Things have changed, but there was a time when it was like Flex was all suits
and ties,
every day,
cufflinks, Movados.
Cufflinks get expensive.
Did you have an earring? I don't know you pre-pandemic.
No earrings, So, and question for you, what advice would you give, young women that are interested in entrepreneurship?
I think young women, really, protect your well-being, your self-care, your mental health, and that's for all women. That's something that I've had to be really intentional about, really try to understand and invest in. Investing in my well-being is critical to the success of anything I do. And so that is the advice I have. And then also make decisions and understand what that means for your financial future. I think we don't talk about well-being and health well-being, like your physical and mental well-being enough, and then financial well-being. And those are two journeys that I have had learned and have come across as a storm for me. And then I see a rainbow and I'm like, wow, but it's been a journey. And I sit here today and think, if I had known that 10 years earlier, if someone had guided me or I had that knowledge, what would I have done differently? So I just think those two topics in general, thinking about your financial well-being, what that means, and then also taking care of your mental and physical health, because, it's important. I think it's just so important.
So what does Sara do for self-care?
Oh, well, I love to be outdoors and, physical activity, pickleball. I like to go work out, lift weights, run. I try to stay active.
That's awesome.
And I think picnicking is fun too. I tell people, I'm like, picnicking is a physical activity. You're eating in the park. You have to, so those kind of things.
For sure. So how can people get in touch with you?
I think the best way to get in touch with me would be to email me, Sara at MuniTasks.com. And, we're going to be making our LinkedIn post because we are now in the Chicago Inno March Madness bracket.
Yeah.
That's going until April 2nd. So we're in the first tier. So you have until Sunday to vote. So it's 64 companies, and then that'll move down and keep getting smaller and smaller. And I think it's there's so many amazing Chicago-based startups that are here. And quite honestly, this week when I found out that we actually we actually made it.
How did you find out? Like, what was the process? Or
the advisor that I have on our team
nominated you?
Yeah,
oh,
and
awesome.
he was like, "You're in," and I was like, "Oh wow!" And I didn't develop a campaign around it. There's a lot of things that you can't always do. So now, I have friends that are going to help me, get the vote out. But you voted for me already.
Yeah,
we got our people here in the studio. My new friends who are going to vote for me.
My human AI did so as well. I texted him. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we have that. So we'll put that in a link. It's going till April 2nd. That's going to give us a lot of visibility. We know that this whole company that we're building, like the gig economy and government, they're two huge, big sectors, but I have to go step by step. And so anybody who wants to work with us, who's passionate about making a public impact, who has talent and skills to share with us. We're a small team. So a lot of my team has been volunteer-based so far, which because they're committed to the vision. So email us, connect with us on TikTok. I'm going to do my TikTok in the studio here today.
Okay.
And I'm excited for that. We launched actually on Valentine's Day, and we've been going for a month, and I have a few ambassadors, former public sector seasonal workers that have been helping me lead the way. And, if anybody, knows somebody who wants to invest in MuniTasks, who really cares about what we're doing, reach out. We're looking for partnerships.
Right. Not just any investors that are
aligned. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Long-term partners.
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah. We have a criteria, we're not just taking anybody or talking to anybody.
Yeah, not anybody's money.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, looks like, there's going to be a lot of challenges, but, the opportunities, are there as we, talked
they
about.
Are.
So,
and there has to be, it's about timing too. Like I've said, with a lot of different pieces of legislation that I've been a part of, whether drafting or advocating for, they have been in the pipeline sometimes for decades or years. And the timing of when something has to move, I say this a lot about telehealth. There's many stakeholders.
Let's move.
And then what happened with pandemic? Telehealth took off, but there had been people.
It took the pandemic to expose.
And then for government to get on. So I really look at this, going back to the well-being, this is a product. I'm trying to put a product out there. I'm trying to make a difference. And so having kind of that separation that, yes, I'm pouring my heart into it and all my mental energy that I can, that, looking at the journey, knowing that it's going to evolve, that it's making me change for the better and become a better person and meet you and meet so many other amazing people that had I stood on the track of like just lawyering and in my space, I wouldn't be here. So for me, it's a blessing. So thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I'm honored.
I know we're going to have a great friendship moving forward. So
yes,
I can't wait till we do the AR metaverso.
Yeah.
Version of
yeah. So before I let you go, any governments, that are doing any metaverse stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Funny.
Yeah.
That's a joke, right?
No, I'm serious.
I know a couple. I would say there's a few governments that actually have chief innovation officers. It's kind of like a newer title. And I mean, I think it's really cool. I have a friend who's a CIO out in California. But I think, some Parks and Rec, actually, there's a couple of vendors in the Parks and Rec space that are trying to bring AR and VR to Parks and Rec to get kids engaged, that they're adopting those things. So, it's trickling in different ways.
Tell them about Flex.
I will.
Yeah, hook a brother up.
I will.
Appreciate you.
Make the connections.
That's what we do.
Thank you so much for today, Flex.
It's my pleasure.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, I'm proud of you too.
Thank you.
All right, more to come.